Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Point EDC. Today we're looking at a real classic from Spyderco. So a little bit about Spyderco. They were founded in 1979 out in Golden, Colorado, which is of course U.S. in origin. Now they have factories throughout. Basically they produce more of their iconic watches out of the U.S. factory. A lot of their high-end pieces come out of the Taiwan factory, and then kind of Japan and Italy kind of spread those entry-level to mid-range, while their China factories produce some of the more budget-oriented knives. So their market segment is that they cover everything from entry level to high end. And basically, this piece, I think it is, really straddling that line. I think it's kind of the best entry into more high end style knives. I'm sure you've all seen this before. This is the Sage 2. So let's go ahead and zoom out and knock out our customary wristwatch check here. So today we have the Degas Cav 1 Type 2.2. I chose it because it's one of my newer watches and I really enjoy wearing it. Also, I just shot a review for it, so go ahead and keep an eye out for that. And I feel like the finish there really ties in to the Sage, and I think it really complements it well with that bead blast finish. And then I have it, of course, on this Benetto Centuri rubber strap, and then I just had the I swapped out the buckle for some bead blasted hardware, so everything kind of ties in for more of a cohesive look. And let's go ahead and get a lume shot while we can. The sun is up, so it's going to be a little brighter outside, but let's see if we can get that. All right. Oh, yeah, it's definitely a lot brighter. So as you can see, though, even in kind of low light, mid to low light, you can see that it is lighting up pretty nicely. So if you want to see the full-on lume shot, you're going to have to go ahead and look through my channel and find the glorious lume. Let's see if we can maybe... yeah, that's a little better. But as you can see, really nice C3 Super Luminova, so big fan. So that's what's going to be flopping around my wrist during this review. So let's go ahead and pick up this great, pretty much iconic EDC knife from Spyderco. So of course the the Sage line, basically, what they do is, they pay tribute to different iconic knife makers, and kind of, in the way that they've innovated different types of locks, blade locks. So this particular lock, as you can surely tell, is based off the Chris Reeve integral lock, which is an evolution of the Walker liner lock, except you're going to have a fully titanium handle and the integrated frame lock, which is also a common name for these now, is a frame lock. So very cool, and very in vogue right now in style with knife making. Frame locks are just really big. So this one is just, no frills, very much a form from function design. I mean, this is just a classic. This is one of those ones where you can make the argument this is all the knife you really need. Of course, you can have more wants, but as far as needs go, this is a knife that is going to check all those boxes, I feel, and it's a real favorite. I feel like people buy a lot of different knives that are similar to this knife, but they end up keeping this one just because it's just so nice in hand, and it's just beauty in its simplicity, really. The execution is fantastic. The feel in the hand from the action, the deployment, the lockup, that nice snap and crack that you get, it's just really, really nice. Big fan. So the Sage 2, specifically with the nomenclature C123 Ti for titanium, it's going to retail for $299.95. That's basically the MSRP, But Spyderco also participates in MAP pricing, which is the minimum advertised price. And their MAP pricing for this is just under 180 at 179.97, which I think is actually a really great value for what you're getting. So, you know, the blade shape is a really nice kind of spear leaf shape. Which is really iconic to Spyderco, which is really nice. So although, yeah, this is, you know, paying tribute to Chris Reeve, it looks and it oozes Spyderco, which is really, really nice. So as you can see, the blade steel is CPM S30V, which is, you know, a premium stainless steel. You know, of course, Crucible is US based, which is nice. It has a very nice flat ground finish. I'm sorry, flat ground, I guess, shape. With a satin finish. As you can see, the brushing is really nice. And then the handle is titanium and it's matte bead blasted, which is nice and durable. Of course, you know, you can develop snail trails and whatnot, but I feel like this particular bead blasting is smooth enough to where it's a little bit harder for it to pick up signs of wear, which is really, really nice. So from the beginning of the video, you saw the overall dimensions I posted, but one thing to touch on is that, you know, this is just slightly over 7 inches overall, so I think it's in that kind of sweet spot of knife lengths where it's not a huge knife, but it's not really, you know, super small. It actually is very useful with the cutting edge that's on there. And it only weighs about 3.5 ounces, so it has enough weight to feel like a quality tool in your hand, but not so much to where it's going to be weighing down your pocket, which is really nice. So in hand, the ergonomics are just really, really nice. I mean, it has just really great beveling right here, which I think is just really finely executed, as you can see. You know, so although it came from flat, you know, stock of titanium, they did bevel it and round it and really hit all those points to where it's not feeling, you know, what isn't supposed to be sharp isn't sharp on this knife, and what is supposed to be sharp is very sharp. So really nicely done. As you can see, that nice flat grind, which makes it great for slicing. Really cool. And then as you can see, the spine, you know, yeah, it's gonna have a finer tip, but you know, it still has enough meat on there to where it's, you know, it's still, you're going to be able to use this in a lot of different situations. It's by no means a delicate knife. So, you know, the ergonomics are outstanding. I mean, really good jimping on this nice thumb ramp here. The 50-50 finger choil, which is, you know, 50% blade, or, you know, this specifically is Ricasso, and then 50% the handle here. It's just, I love that. I love seeing that. It feels great in hand. It allows you to really choke up if you need to, you know, and then if you don't, you know, you can just handle it, you know, in various EDC grips, but, you know, it just feels right at home right here, locked in. And that's exactly what it does. It just locks into your hand, which is really nice. So a big fan of the ergonomics of Spyderco's, of course. Let's see, the action is very smooth. You know, it's on the phosphor bronze washers as far as the pivot goes, and it does have a heat treated lock face, so there's not going to be any stick, which is nice. It's because it is, you know, there's no insert there. It has really late timing on that lockup. But it's not something you have to really worry about, I feel, because it is heat treated. So this is only going to travel over so much, and, you know, of course, there's no blade play or anything like that. So really nicely done. You know, it's not the fastest knife, you know, for deployment. You know, you can misfire it like I did earlier in the video. It's one of those things where there's a small amount of wrist flick that's involved. Most of the time, if you really want to ensure that it's going to open. Of course, I don't want to do that with the camera in front of me because I don't want to shake the table. So I really have to kind of focus on trying to kick it out there really without flicking my wrist, which is tougher, definitely. So it's still really nice though. So as you can see, not the fastest, but definitely smooth and very crisp action. And also because it's very simple with those phosphor bronze washers, and you know, it's only 3 screws. This is one you could field strip to clean out. If you take it out with you, you go camping, you know, whatever, you're just out hiking for the day. If this thing gets gross and murky and dirty, you can really just field strip it, take it apart, clean it off, put it back together, and put it back in your pocket. Very cool feature. And you know, speaking of that kind of closed profile, as you can see, it actually is nice and thin, so it doesn't take up a lot of room in your pocket. And of course, it has that very nice minimal kind of deep carry wire clip, which is very famous for Spyderco. I think they are the only ones who can kind of get away with something that is actually, you know, quote unquote, very cheap looking, and make it look really good because it is functional. And again, it's a cutting tool, as most Spydercos are, first, and then it is, you know, kind of eye candy second. And I feel like the things that make this knife eye candy are the things that make it a functional cutting tool, which is really cool, right? So again, this one draws its form from its functionality, which I think is just fantastic. And of course, the execution is just so clean and crisp. It's just very, very nicely done. So let's see, model variants. There's so many, you know, the Sage 1 has the Walker liner lock, Sage 3 has a bolt action, Sage 4 has a back lock, Sage 5 compression lock. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of different ones as far as the Sage line goes. A lot of different options. They're not all like identical and interchangeable. They all are going to have that S30V blade steel, but the handles are all going to be different. I think actually the Sage 1 and the Sage 2 are the only ones where they're actually kind of interchangeable, where you can swap out the scale if I wanted to, you know, make a hybrid, half carbon scale, half titanium scale. I could do that if I had a Sage 1. So that's pretty cool. Now, as far as comparable options go, you know, they all come in more traditional silhouettes in general. They're not going to be kind of as unique as this particular knife, and I think as iconic, really, as far as EDC goes, is really iconic shape. Basically, the size fits somewhere in between the Sebenza 21, you know, small and large. So, of course, those knives are going to cost a lot more, pretty much double the cost, and they're going to have S35 VN versus the S30V. Basically, S35 is just kind of an improved formula that Chris Reeve worked with Crucible to produce. And let's go ahead and get out the Sebenza small. So as you can see, this actually is the Knife Art exclusive Sebenza. So it does have the carbon fiber scale, but so let's look at it more from the lock face side. As you can see, you know, the execution is definitely similar in that, you know, with the way they did the beveling and everything like that. Of course, the Sebenza is just going to be a little bit more detailed, a little bit more fine, you know, as far as the finishing goes. But, you know, the Sage 2 is really no slouch. And although this pays tribute to the Sebenza, it doesn't look like a Sebenza. I think it's pretty clearly its own thing versus, you know, there are a lot of knives out there that really are closely tracking to look like a Sebenza. So really nice. And size-wise, you know, pretty similar. Cutting edge, the Sebenza's got a little bit of an edge on it. No pun intended. But you know, the Sebenza is kind of a different beast, and especially in this kind of Knife Art exclusive variant, you know, it's kind of been specially done. But I just wanted to give you more of a size comparison. I think quality wise, of course, the Sebenza kind of has the edge on it, but again, as far as what you need versus what you want, the Sage is just, I mean personally, I think the deployment is better on the Sage. Of course I like spider holes. The Sebenza is a little bit more particular, right? It's very smooth and everything like that, but it's even, I'd say, you know, harder to flip without really flipping your wrist. So actually, let's face them this way. Go clip up. So kind of give you an idea. Of course, there's a little forced perspective here because the camera is lower on one point than the other. So the one that's on top is going to look smaller, and the one that's on bottom is going to look slightly larger due to perspective. But one knife I wanted to pull out that's kind of a comparable option now is the Benchmade 765. Outstanding piece. And of course, Benchmade is just as well known as Spyderco for producing quality knives. Of course, they do have some issues with quality control, unfortunately, but basically if you get a really nice example of a Benchmade, you're going to get an outstanding value. And I lucked out with this piece in that the quality is very nicely done. I'm not seeing, you know, too much asymmetry anywhere on the blade or any kind of hiccups in that quality control, which is nice. I'd say really the only drawback is the milled clip definitely took more form over function. It definitely looks great and really keeps those nice slim lines carried throughout the knife. But, you know, as far as, you know, material, when you're trying to put this on your pants, it definitely can kind of eat up that material pretty easily just because there's not much room in there. And then this is a little bit more of a sharper edge as far as what's going to be retaining the little keeper there on your pants. So comparing now, I feel like this is kind of, you know, two different generations of, you know, simplicity in design. So the Benchmade definitely is something that's more new and contemporary, you know, with all these facets and the really fancy beveling that's happening here. You know, it's really a modern piece. It's, you know, one of the first really modern production titanium folders that have been produced to this quality. That action is fantastic. It's one of my favorite deployment actions on a knife right now. Honestly, I wish almost that it had a flipper tab because that D10 is just so perfect. Great snap. The action is just, oh, great. Of course, you can misfire because the D10 is very strong, but great knife. I'd say it's very, very comparable. Of course, it's going to cost a lot more. Whereas the Sage, let me put this up here because it is slightly larger, so let's make it look a little more even. It's going to be more so, instead of a knife from the new class and the next generation, I'd say this is more a distilled kind of perfect example of a frame lock. You know, where it's not throwing any bells and whistles. It doesn't have the fancy ball bearing system that you're gonna find, you know, or, you know, even the detent is not quite as dialed in as the Benchmade, but it's just really nicely done. You know, I feel like this is just kind of a perfected version of what a titanium frame lock, you know, can and should be. Something that's simple, elegant, and of course functional first. I mean, this is a great cutting tool. Actually, let me wipe off the blade there. Got my fingerprints all over this bad boy. So let's go ahead and get this here. So we'll kind of close on that, guys. Let me know what you think. I know this is a real favorite of a knife. How do you think it holds up to the Sebenza? You know, what do you think about the 765 from Benchmade? I just feel like this is kind of a really cool evolution of titanium frame locks that we have here just for this video, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments below, and hit like if you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks.